February 19, 1945. Out on the vast, unforgiving blue of the Pacific, thousands of U.S. Marines drift in their landing craft. Their eyes are fixed on a small, dark speck on the horizon, Iwo Jima, for days. They've watched American warships pound this volcanic rock. They've seen bombers paint its surface with fire. They were promised that nothing could survive such a bombardment. They expect to be met by a wall of flame and steel. Instead, they get silence. A dead, unnerving quiet, broken only by the hum of their boat engines and the gentle slosh of the waves. As they get closer, a smell hits them. The sharp, acrid stench of sulfur, like rotten eggs, bleeding from the island's volcanic vents. The island itself looks like a nightmare landscape, dead and barren. The first wave of Marines hits the beach. Their boots sink into coarse, black sand, like stepping into a nightmare of quicksand. It's volcanic ash, loose and deep, making every step an exhausting struggle. There's no cover. No trenches, no foxholes, just wide-open terraces of black sand rising before them. They move forward, stumbling, weighed down by their gear, feeling exposed and vulnerable. The silence continues. It feels wrong, deceptive. Where are the defenders? The island seems deserted, a ghost rock haunted only by the sulphurous wind. They push inland, 100 yards, 200 yards, their unease growing with every step into the eerie quiet. And then Iwo Jima erupts. It doesn't come from the beaches. It comes from the island itself. From hidden caves, from reinforced concrete pillboxes camouflaged as rock, from tunnels carved deep into the volcanic stone. Mortar shells rain down from invisible positions, their arcs perfectly calculated. Machine guns open up from interlocking fields of fire, scything through the ranks with murderous precision. Heavy artillery, hidden in lava tubes and on the high ground of Mount Suribachi, begins to find its range, turning the beach into a kill zone. The naval bombardment, for all its thunder and fury, had barely scratched the surface. This tiny island, just 8 square miles, was critical. For the Americans, it was a stepping stone to victory. Its airfields were desperately needed for damaged B-29 bombers returning from raids on Japan, and as a base for fighter escorts that could protect them all the way to Tokyo and back. For the Japanese, Iwo Jima was sacred soil, part of the homeland. It was also a vital radar station, giving Tokyo hours of early warning before American bombers arrived. Losing it was unthinkable. The man who had forged this fortress was General Tadamichi Kuribayashi. He was a brilliant, unorthodox commander who had studied the American military. He knew that a simple defense on the beach would fail. So for months, he had turned Iwo Jima into a subterranean fortress, a honeycomb of over 11 miles of tunnels connecting thousands of fighting positions. He forbade the wasteful, suicidal banzai charges of past battles. His orders were grimly simple. Every soldier would defend his position to the death and kill 10 Americans before he died. On those beaches, men like Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone, a Medal of Honor recipient from Guadalcanal, led his Marines into the inferno. He and thousands of others were stepping into a meticulously crafted meat grinder. 3 Marine divisions, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, were being fed ashore straight into Kuribayashi's trap. The leadership, from ships offshore, could only watch in horror as the island they thought had been neutralized revealed its true, terrifying nature. The black sand offers no escape. It swallows their feet, making it impossible to run, impossible to dig in. The surf pushes them forward relentlessly into the maelstrom of explosions and gunfire. They are caught between the sea at their backs and an unseen enemy firing from 1,000 hidden layers. Every shell crater, every piece of wreckage becomes a desperate, temporary shield in a landscape designed for death. As the unseen guns zero in, the Higgins boats slam onto the shore, ramps crashing down, but instead of firm ground, the Marines plunge into a nightmare of soft, black volcanic sand. It's like trying to run through quicksand. The Amtraks, the tracked landing vehicles meant to carry them inland, churn uselessly, their treads digging deeper into the ash, becoming sitting ducks. The beach exits, those vital funnels meant to get men off this killing floor, are swept by a storm of steel. Enfilade fire, a crossfire from multiple directions, tears across the sand from hidden positions on Mount Suribachi to the south and the rocky ridgelines to the north. For what felt like an eternity, the Japanese guns had been silent, a terrifying, calculated patience. They waited until the beaches were choked with men and machines, a perfect, condensed target. Then they opened up with everything they had. Mortar shells walk across the beach in devastating patterns. Artillery, pre-sighted on every square meter of sand, rains down in a constant, deafening barrage. It's a scene of pure chaos. Navy corpsmen, marked by the red cross on their helmets, sprint through the shrapnel, weaving between the dead and dying, their medical kits already stained. Radiomen, hunched low, scream coordinates into their handsets, trying to get the massive guns of the fleet to silence the Japanese batteries. Through the cacophony of explosions and shouts, a different sound cuts through the calm, steady cadence of a Navajo Code Talker. His voice, speaking a language the enemy cannot break, is a thread of order in the heart of pandemonium, directing fire with chilling precision. The Japanese commander, General Kuribayashi, had turned the entire island into an interlocking fortress, and the Marines were caught in the vestibule. Suddenly, the ground near Motoyama Airfield, No. 1 erupts. Hatches on buried fortifications fly open, and the cannons of Colonel Baron Nishi's concealed tanks begin to bark. They'd punch holes in the advancing Marine lines, adding another layer of terror to the beachhead. It's here, in this maelstrom, that a legend falls. Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone, a Medal of Honor recipient from Guadalcanal, a man who had survived one hell to sell war bonds back home, only to demand a return to the front. He sees his men pinned down by a Japanese blockhouse. He grabs a demolition charge and sprints forward, rallying his platoon, urging them through the fire. He gets them into position. They take out the strong point, but in the process, a mortar shell finds him. The hero of Guadalcanal is killed instantly. There are no second acts in this war. His death is a gut punch, a brutal reminder that valor is no shield against a random piece of shrapnel. The advance is not measured in yards, but in inches. It's a slow, grinding, brutal process. From pillbox to pillbox, from one shell crater to the next. The only way forward is to get close. Marines crawl on their bellies, dragging satchel charges, stuffing them into the firing slits of concrete bunkers. The world shrinks to the space between you and the next enemy position. Flamethrower teams become the most valuable assets, moving up to spew liquid fire into the cave mouths and gun ports, silencing the machine guns within. Each position taken is a small victory paid for in blood, a single step in a seemingly endless journey across a lunar landscape of death. The sand itself is an enemy, exhausting the men, swallowing their gear, offering no solid cover. Through the haze of smoke, cordite, and black sand kicked up by explosions, the Marines lift their exhausted eyes. Looming over them all is the objective that has haunted them since they hit the beach. Mount Suribachi. It's not just a mountain. It's a fortress. Its slopes terraced and riddled with a spiderweb of caves, tunnels, and gun emplacements. It stares down at them, the source of so much of the fire that has turned the landing into a slaughterhouse. As night begins to fall on the first day, the orders filter down through the shattered commands, passed from officer to NCO, from man to man. The strategy is clear, if audacious. They will not just assault the volcano. They will first drive across the narrowest part of the island, cutting it in two, isolating Suribachi from the main Japanese forces in the north. Only then will the assault begin. The island would be severed, and the cheers from the beach don't reach the men clawing their way up Mount Suribachi. Here, the only sounds are the scrape of hands on volcanic glass and the sickening slosh of fuel in flamethrower tanks. The air is a cocktail of cordite, sweat, and something acrid and choking, the smell of fire meeting a concrete bunker. The 28th Marines are learning a brutal lesson in three-dimensional warfare. They move with a grim rhythm, suppress, advance, assault. A flamethrower team saturates a cave mouth, the fiery liquid turning the opening into a roaring furnace. The Marines cheer, thinking one less threat. Then, from a hidden slit just yards away, a machine gun opens up. The defenders haven't been eliminated. They've just moved. This is General Kuribayashi's masterpiece of death. Suribachi isn't a mountain. It's a termite mound, a honeycomb of tunnels and galleries carved deep into the volcanic rock. Some passages are miles long. A Japanese soldier can fire from a pillbox, then vanish down a staircase, run 100 yards underground, and re-emerge from a spider hole to fire into the Marines' backs. The Americans are fighting ghosts. They clear a bunker, only to have it reoccupied minutes later by unseen defenders who traveled through the heart of the mountain. Every inch of ground is paid for twice, sometimes 3 times. The Marines adapt, sealing cave mouths with explosives, bulldozing them shut, trying to entune the enemy. But for every entrance they close, another seems to appear. The progress is measured in feet, not yards. The suspense is a physical thing, tight as a tripwire. Every shadow could hide a gun slit, every pile of rubble a camouflage sniper. After 4 agonizing days of this subterranean battle fought on the surface, a small patrol from Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Marines, is ordered to the summit. They expect a fight to the death at the crater's rim, but as they crest the peak, they find it eerily quiet. The main Japanese force has withdrawn deeper into the tunnels. At 10:20 a.m. on February 23rd, they secure a long piece of pipe to a small American flag and raise it over Iwo Jima. Down below, on the beaches and on the ships offshore, a wave of pure electricity goes through the men. Ship horns blare, soldiers and sailors scream themselves hoarse. It's a jolt of pure, unadulterated hope. For the first time, it feels like they might actually win this thing. That small flag is soon replaced by a much larger one. A moment captured by photographer Joe Rosenthal in an image that would become immortal. But the goosebumps and the cheers mask a sober truth. The flag on Suribachi is a symbol, a powerful one. But it's not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. While all eyes are on that triumphant silhouette atop the volcano, the real heart of the battle is shifting. To the north lie the Motoyama airfields, and beyond them, a hellish landscape of ridges, gorges, and shattered rock. It has a maze of fortified positions so dense and deadly that the Marines have already given it a nickname. As the cheers for Suribachi echo across the island, thousands of men turn their gaze north, toward the terrain that will be known simply as the meat grinder. The victory on the mountain has only earned them a ticket to a far greater slaughter. The relative quiet of the southern airfields was now a distant memory. Northward they pushed, into a landscape so twisted and violent it felt like another planet. This was a hellscape of volcanic ash and shattered rock, a place the Marines gave grim nicknames. Hill 382, the Turkey Knob, the Amphitheater. Each name was a scar, a memorial to the men who fought and fell there. Progress wasn't measured in miles, but in blood-soaked yards. Sometimes a victory was taking a single blasted foxhole. The island was a fortress and every inch was contested with a ferocity that defied belief. Imagine this, a Marine, no older than 20, armed with a 70-pound flamethrower. Let's call him Woody. He's crawling on his belly, volcanic grit scraping his skin raw, the air thick with the smell of sulfur and cordite. Ahead, a concrete pillbox, nearly invisible against the rock, spits machine gun fire. Riflemen lay down a desperate curtain of suppressing fire, bullets kicking up dust around the aperture, trying to buy him seconds. Woody inches forward, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. He gets into position, pulls the trigger, and a torrent of liquid fire engulfs the opening, silencing the gun in a terrifying roar. But there's no time for relief. As he scrambles back, another machine gun, hidden in a camouflage nest they never saw, opens up from the flank. It's a deadly grinding rhythm. Smoke in, suppress, charge, satchel, seal, move on. And then do it all over again, 10 yards later. This was General Kuribayashi's strategy in action. He had forbidden the reckless, suicidal charges of past battles. His orders were clear. Each man will make it his duty to kill 10 of the enemy before he himself is killed. This was a war of attrition, death by 1,000 cuts. His men were ghosts, masters of camouflage and ambush, emerging from a labyrinth of over 16 miles of interconnected tunnels and more than 1,500 fortified caves and pillboxes. They would hold their fire until the Marines were almost on top of them, creating devastating kill zones. They fought from positions the Americans thought they had already cleared, popping up behind them, turning secure rear areas into new front lines. When darkness fell, the physical battle morphed into a psychological one. Night brought a new kind of terror. The ground itself was often too hot to lie on, a constant, unsettling warmth from the volcanic activity below. Men tried to sleep sitting up in their slit trenches, rifles clutched to their chests. Uniforms were stiff with sulfurous dust and sweat. Water was rationed by the mouthful. And in the oppressive blackness, the whispers would start. Japanese infiltration squads, masters of stealth, would slip through the lines. They cut communication wires, isolating units from each other. A grenade might suddenly arc out of the darkness and land in a foxhole. The challenge password would be met with silence, or worse, a rustle in the bush, followed by the muffled sounds of a desperate hand-to-hand struggle. Every shadow held a potential threat. Every strange sound could mean death. The strain was immense, fraying nerves to the breaking point. The Marines learned to adapt, setting up intricate webs of tripwires and listening posts. They relied on password and countersign. Knowing a wrong answer was a death sentence. But the infiltration attacks continued, night after agonizing night. They were probes, tests, designed to bleed the Marines, to deny them rest, to grind them down mentally and physically. But late on the 5th day, intelligence reports started filtering in, painting a more ominous picture. The scattered night probes seemed to be coalescing. Scouts reported unusual levels of movement in the darkness, amassing of forces in the northern ravines. This felt different. This wasn't just a few squads trying to cause chaos. This felt bigger, more coordinated. As another sunless twilight descended upon the island, the Marines dug in deeper, cleaned their weapons one more time, and stared into the encroaching darkness. A cold tension settled over the lines. They'd braced themselves, a silent, collective breath held across the front. Something was coming. In the pre-dawn blackness of March 26, 1945, the ground on Iwo Jima trembled one last time. This wasn't another random banzai charge. This was General Kuribayashi's final, desperate gambit. From a labyrinth of hidden tunnels near Airfield No. 2, a disciplined force of around 300 Japanese soldiers surged forward. Their objective was clear and lethal: to slice through the American rear, targeting sleeping pilots and support personnel. This was a coordinated ghost-like assault, a final defiant roar from a dying army. The night exploded. Star shells burst overhead, casting the chaotic scene in an eerie, flickering glow. Japanese officers, armed with swords, led the charge, while their men, shockingly, carried American weapons scavenged from the battlefield. Machine gun tracers stitched fiery patterns through the darkness as the attack slammed into the bivouac areas of Army pilots and Marine shore parties. The Americans, caught off guard, reacted on pure instinct. Men scrambled from their tents, forming makeshift firing lines. It was a brutal, close-quarters brawl fought with rifles, grenades, and bayonets. Through the chaos, the legendary discipline of the Marines held. Ad hoc cordons were thrown up, containing the breach. Corpsmen, silhouetted against the muzzle flashes, crawled forward, dragging the wounded back to safety by their webbing straps. Artillery that had been silent for days roared back to life, its shells programmed to explode just feet above the ground, creating a wall of steel that shredded the Japanese advance. Navajo Code Talkers relayed coordinates with lightning speed, orchestrating the defense and preventing friendly fire in the confusing melee. It was a testament to training, technology, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. As the first hints of dawn painted the eastern sky, the attack faltered. The last pockets of resistance were silenced. The final, organized Japanese counterattack had guttered out like a candle in the wind. In the aftermath, the cost was counted. But one man remained a mystery. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi was gone. He had likely removed his rank insignia and charged into the fray with his men, fulfilling his promise to die alongside them. His body was never definitively identified, lost among the thousands who perished under his command. He had achieved his grim objective, to trade his life, and the lives of his 21,000 men, for as much American blood as possible. A few days later, on March 26th, the island was officially declared secure. But the victory felt hollow, the price staggering. Over 6,800 Americans had been killed, with another 19,000 wounded. Of the 21,000 Japanese defenders, all but a few hundred were dead. The island was a graveyard, consecrated by the courage of both sides. So, was it worth it? The answer arrived not in speeches but on wings. In the months that followed, Iwo Jima became what it was intended to be, an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Over 2,000 B-29 superfortresses, shot up and crippled on their long-range missions over Japan, made emergency landings on its runways. For nearly 24,000 airmen, this tiny volcanic island meant the difference between life and the difference between parachuting into the vast, unforgiving Pacific or walking away from their battered bombers on solid ground. Each landing was a life saved, a validation of the sacrifice made to take the island. The iconic photograph of the flag raising on Mount Suribachi is just one frame in a much longer, harsher story. The true battle for Iwo Jima was fought inch by bloody inch, in the black volcanic sand, through the smoke-filled tunnels, and in the memories of the men who carried that island on their backs forever. The echoes of their struggle remind us that history is written not just in grand strategies, but in the individual moments of terror and valor. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Battle of Iwo Jima. The Second World War is filled with stories like this tale of incredible courage and sacrifice that deserve to be remembered. If you want to uncover more of these untold histories, be sure to subscribe to the channel and